Who among us doesn't like to solve difficult riddles, especially if they're interesting, and if they're all around us? One of these riddles has been unsolved for centuries. Maybe you can solve it right now. This is Infinity, and in this episode, I'll tell you about a riddle that no one has been able to solve for 200 years. Let's go! Not far from the coast of Canadian Nova Scotia, there's an island that's been bothering people for 200 years. Its name is Oak Island. The territory of the island is covered with oak trees, and visually it's no different from hundreds of other islands. Then what's bothering people? A pit. It was discovered on the island back in the 18th century. But what could be hiding there? The simplest and most common version is the treasure of pirates. But then how'd they manage to build such underground vaults? There are also versions that it's the treasure of some French ruler or the treasure of the Incas, and that's not the whole list. Back in 1795, three teenagers, Daniel McGinnis, Anthony Vaughan, and John Smith, were on this unremarkable island. Looking around, they found the entrance to the pit almost completely filled in. They began to excavate the pit with great excitement. They came across a slab of oak planks 3 meters deep. The treasure wasn't buried beneath it. The venture had to be abandoned, but only for a while. A few years later, the friends returned to the island as adults. They were joined by a retired captain, Joe Sellers, who had bought the land. Intensive work had begun. Breaking more and more partitions of oak crossbars, the diggers plunged to a depth of 10 meters and discovered a slab of charcoal. Then they encountered a thick layer of clay, interlayers of coconut fibers, and other slabs of logs, but not as massive as the first ones. But at a depth of 24 meters, they had a surprise in the form of a thick layer of ship putty. They managed to break through it, but that wasn't the end of the surprises. A flat rock was found with a short, encrypted inscription carved into it. This was deciphered, but later. It read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. After the text was discovered, a nasty thing happened. The pit was flooded with water. Soon they found a second tunnel that led from the coast inland to the pit. It was decided to set an explosion there. After these actions, the pit was almost completely drained. If the diary kept by Joe Sellers is to be believed, on August 23, 1813, the old oak barrel was finally extracted from the pit. But there was no mention in the diary of what was inside the barrel. Let's get back to those teenagers who once started it all. One of them, Anthony Vaughan, did manage to be tracked down in London. As it turned out, he was the owner of huge land in Canada and England. Did the guys really find something after returning to the pit again? It's not known with certainty. After the first expedition, many other treasure hunters ventured to Oak Island, picking up the baton of excavation one by one. Absolutely everyone was convinced that they would find the hidden treasure, but all expeditions ended the same way, with nothing. The island itself also changed hands. Some suggested the treasure hadn't been there for a very long time. It was allegedly exported as early as the first half of the 20th century. Thus, the cursed gold began, as it were, to take revenge. Just from that time on the island, people began to die under mysterious circumstances, and the expensive equipment here was breaking down. No treasure's been found to this day, although the pit was nicknamed the Money Pit. Such a thing has never happened in history. Treasure hunters know where the potential treasure is hidden, but for more than 200 years they can't find the cherished chests. Apparently, the island doesn't want its main mystery to be solved yet. What do you think? Is the treasure still lying in that pit on Oak Island, or has someone already got their hands on it? Share your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned to learn about more unsolved mysteries that will interest you. There once lived a man named Edward Leedskalnin. One day he fell head over heels in love with a 16-year-old girl, and it seemed to be headed toward a wedding. But the bride ran away from under the altar, literally at the last moment. Edward's heart was broken, and he decided to leave his homeland, Latvia. After wandering around the world, he finally chose a place to settle down. Florida was an ideal place for a man with poor health. There, with his meager savings, he bought a house. That's where the fun part began. He lived all alone and had no contact with anyone. At first, no one even suspected that he was building a house. It was originally called Rock Gate, but later it was called Coral Castle. It was dedicated to the very girl who rejected him. So what's bad or strange if a man with a broken heart was creating something? First of all, Leedskalnin worked without any helpers and only after sunset. And second, he got and processed more than 1,000 tons of lime blocks himself. This is the figure that experts have announced. How one man, who was 152 centimeters tall and weighed 47 kilograms, could bring blocks of limestone from Gulf Coast and form walls without special equipment? It's a real mystery. He processed giant blocks so that later it was possible to build without cement by stacking the blocks one on top of the other. What's striking is the fact that in 1936, Edward had to move Coral Castle to another location. This happened immediately after the news that a multi-story building is planned to be built on a neighboring site. Apparently all the dismantling, loading, and unloading works were done by Leedskalnin himself. By the way, to all questions, he only answered that he learned the secret of the pyramid builders. It took him 25 years to build the castle, and during that time, Edward Leedskalnin never made any friends or family. But he did have visitors. He even agreed to accept tours and took a token payment of 10 cents. Engineers, architects, scientists who came to see him all wanted to know the secret of construction, but Edward remained silent. Beneath the name of Coral Castle, there are many of Edward's structures. They're all built of oolite stone. The most striking of the complex is a 2-story square tower with a workshop on the first floor and living quarters on the second floor. Scientists still have more questions than answers. At the beginning of the 20th century, a man named Charles Hatfield became popular in the United States. The Rainmaker. That's how they began to call the American, even though he was just a regular sewing machine salesman. And all because Charles claimed to have invented a special mixture of chemicals capable of causing rain. In 1904, he began offering his services for money, promising to cause rain for just $50. The weather at the time was dry, and farmers decided to hire Hatfield to do something to save their crops. Having built a tower on a high mountain and launched his secret mixture into the air, Charles successfully attempted to make it rain. It was a miracle because it rained. The Rainmaker got not even $50 but as much as $100 from the happy farmers. His fame quickly spread across the country, and despite the occasional setback, he was doing fine. In 1915, Hatfield signed an agreement with the San Diego authorities. He was to take action to fill the Marina Dam reservoir with water. In the end, his manipulation proved heavy rains that led to a flood with destruction and casualties. But this was just another advertisement for his work. He had at least 500 successful experiments throughout his career. Hatfield died in 1958 without revealing his secret. Science cannot provide a logical explanation for how he pulled off such a thing. Today it costs unreasonably much to make it rain. But then how is it possible many years ago? How one man could do it? So far, this is unknown. In 2008, aliens commissioned a Swiss man, Werner Jaisley, to build a landing pad for them in the Argentine desert. At least, that's what the man himself claimed. According to him, one day he saw lights in the sky above the desert. Then a beam of light fell on him, after which he received a telepathic order to create all the conditions for the arrival of aliens. As a result, a landing pad in the shape of a 36-pointed star spread out 48 meters in diameter. The Swiss man claimed to have received an order to create the landing pad in this shape. But in 2012, after finishing his work, Werner Jaisley immediately disappeared from the outskirts of the Argentine city, although he often walked around there before. The locals joked that aliens most likely took Jaisley to their home for his diligent work. According to other reports, the man left for Bolivia or returned home to Switzerland. In any case, it remains a mystery why he decided to create such an object, and where do we look for the truth now? That's all, guys. Do you have the answers to these riddles? If so, share them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.